High up on the ridges of the Krkonoše Mountains, sometimes called the Giant Mountains in English, Das Riesengebirge in German, and Krkonoše in Polish, there is a hidden treasure which cannot be found anywhere else in the world. This is the Arctic-alpine tundra in the center of Europe, and it is worth getting to know in depth. Come with us to experience its colors, smells, and sounds. How did this tundra get to the center of Europe? After all, this special and extremely inhospitable environment is usually found in the polar regions of the northern and southern hemispheres. But high mountain ridges are also covered with this inhospitable world of small shrubs, herbs, grasses, mosses, and lichens. In Krkonoše, in the distant past, the Arctic and alpine tundra repeatedly met each other, gradually creating this unique environment, which is known as the Arctic-alpine tundra of the Krkonoše Mountains. Why did this happen here, in Central Europe? This meeting of two natural worlds, Alpine and Scandinavian, which normally lay thousands of kilometers distant from each other, took place during the cooling of the entire northern hemisphere at the end of the Tertiary period, more than 2.5 million years ago. The cold glacial periods were interspersed with warmer interglacial periods, and the Krkonoše we know today was gradually born. Unlike the regions stretching hundreds of kilometers to the north and south, the Krkonoše ridges were never covered by the contiguous glacier. From the north of Europe, the mighty continental ice sheet advanced as far as the northern foothills of Krkonoše, which blocked their advances several times. In a similar way, the alpine glaciers crept northwards, as far as the Bohemian Basin. The huge masses of ice pushed before them from the south and the north, the living world of the Arctic-alpine tundra, plants and animals which found sanctuary on the frozen but never glacier-covered mountain ridges of Krkonoše. Under the command of wind, ice, snow, and avalanches, this peculiar world of the Arctic-alpine tundra was formed here in Krkonoše. For the last 2 centuries, Krkonoše has been under the microscope of researchers. Scientists have found and described the connections between the development of Krkonoše, Scandinavia, and the Alps. Relatively recently, at the end of the last century, the peculiar world of the Krkonoše Arctic-alpine tundra was described in detail. This has a variety of forms. On the mountain summits, we can find lichen tundra. On the extensive plateau around the Luchny Boda and Labska Boda chalets, we can find grassy tundra. Here, the world of mosses and lichens is replaced by the mosaic of northern peat bogs, mat grass meadows, and dwarf pine scrub. Sheltered from the wind in the deep glacial cirques, we can find rare preserved glacial lakes and glacial moraines. Here we can find the world of flower-rich tundra, which is one of the richest habitats that can be seen in our nature. These cirques are known as the Botanical Gardens of the Krkonoše Mountains. Only several of the highest summits in Krkonoše play host to the unusual environment of lichen tundra. This is the kingdom of Arctic and alpine lichens and mosses. Further hardy types from the world of tundra plants and animals, such as many species of hawkweeds, are also hiding here. Many of them only grow on the Krkonoše ridges, which makes them Krkonoše endemic species. We cannot find them anywhere else in the world. They have adapted well to the life in the rocky soils, where natural processes shape them into characteristic forms over several millennia. It would be easy to attribute the creation of such strange polygons and rocky stripes to the agricultural cultivation by our ancestors, but this would be a mistake. They were formed by natural effects of frost and ice. In several places, the freezing and thawing muddy layers of soils slide across each other and form eye-catching banks covered with mosses and lichens. These tenacious organisms are remarkable for their colors and differing forms. Reptiles, such as the adder and the viviparous lizard, also find sanctuary in the rocky talus. On the highest summits of Krkonoše, including Mount Sněžka, we can find a rich gallery of forms, which are the result of frost, wind, glacial, and water erosion in the ancient past. These processes are still taking place today, although less intensively. Polygons, striped soils, cryoplanation terraces, boulder fields, as well as fractured rocky outcrops, tors. Together with the living nature, they remind us of part of the geological history of the Krkonoše Mountains. On the extensive plateau around the Luchny Boda and Labska Boda chalets, we can find Grassy Tundra. This looks different to the nature of the nearby mountain summits. The short-stemmed alpine grasslands, quaking peat bogs, as well as dense growths of twisted dwarf pine scrub are perfect archives of the ancient and recent past. The Krkonoše peat bogs are the spitting image of those in Scandinavia. Therefore, it is no surprise that they are home of the so-called glacial relics. These include the azure hawker dragonfly, Acantholycosa norvegica, cloudberry, Sudetic lousewort, and other inhabitants of the distant northern regions. These species arrived in Krkonoše thousands of years ago in advance of the continental ice sheet and still live on the mountain ridges today. The rare blue throat, which will please us with its bright coloring and its beautiful song, nests in the shade of the dwarf pine scrub. And what about the enthralling theater mating displays of the grouse, which take place here annually in the tundra wetlands? From the air, the peat bogs, matgrass meadows, and dwarf pine scrub look like camouflage nests spread across the montane plateau. We cannot encounter such a mosaic of tundra communities anywhere else in the world. The Krkonoše Botanical Gardens on the slopes of the Glacial Cirques are an entirely different world. They reflect the perfect combination of natural forces which act on the mountains. The shape of the mountains, their influence on the airflows, the transfer and accumulation of snow, and the fall of avalanches on the leeward side of the Krkonoše Cirques permitted the creation of unique plant communities. For thousands of years, the avalanches have played a vital role in the diversity of nature in the Krkonoše Cirques, where we can find the legendary botanical gardens. Krkonošova zahradka, Čertova zahradka, and Šuslerova zahradka. The Glacial Cirques are textbook examples of how to understand the montane nature. It was right here in the Krkonoše Mountains that the interplay between these natural processes was first discovered and described as the theory of anemone-orographic systems, which has been included in the textbooks on montane nature. Some of the organisms in the Krkonoše Gardens are actively evolving, and the long-term isolation from other mountain ranges means that remarkable endemics have developed here. The Krkonoše population of Sudetic rowan of nearly 200 shrubs represents the entire world heritage of this small woody plant. It developed by the hybridization between two species of rowan, which no longer grow in the national park. The Bohemian Bellflower has a similar story to tell. Other life forms also complement the colorful appearance of the herb-rich tundra and are examples of their special survival strategy in the world of avalanches. The twisted trunks of the shrubs can stand up to the destructive weight of the snow. The avalanche slopes are covered by meadows, where the anemones, monk's hoods, hellebores, and primroses form dense carpets to protect themselves from frost and wind. The rare peregrine falcon, which nests on the cliffs, has returned to Krkonoše after many years and chosen this rugged place as its home. What endangers the unique conditions of the Krkonoše Arctic-alpine tundra? Scientists and nature conservationists who look after the unique tundra have been trying to answer this question for many years. While it is so easy to be considerate of the vulnerable conditions, we leave undesirable footprints on the sensitive tundra floor and damage rare plants by trampling away from the marked trails, creating noise, leaving litter, and disturbing the animals. We humans are only short-term guests in the mountains and should behave accordingly. We should proceed with humility and respect the fascinating Krkonoše tundra, which is fragile, unique, and irreplaceable.